Hey guys, and welcome back to another one of my synopsis breakdowns for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6. I'm going to be talking episode 9 of the season, otherwise titled Collision Course Part 2. Now 6.5 episodes in, we made it past the halfway marker for Season 6. We're getting one episode next week, we're getting one episode the following week, and then we're getting an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gasm on the 19th of July with 2 episodes on one night, them being Leap and From the Ashes. At the very least, that's what IMDb states. I know for a fact that the finale of the season is gonna be on the 2nd of August, so we gotta get a 2-hour night at some point. That could be the 10th and 11th episode, just like IMDb states, or the 12th and 13th, so pretty much the finale night is gonna be a 2-hour finale. Now the titles of every single episode, all the way up until the penultimate episode, so not the finale, have been confirmed. So the leak that I've talked about before is kind of right on all counts, except for one, which is basically the episode I'm about to discuss over here, Collision Course Part 2. This episode was pretty much gonna be titled The Baker, so that's also a hint at what we're gonna see on this episode. Now episode 10 is gonna be titled Leap, episode 11 is gonna be titled From the Ashes, and episode 12 is gonna be titled The Sign. This much is confirmed. The only other leaked title remaining here is the title of episode 13, and it's supposedly gonna be titled New Life. But alright, let's take a look at the synopsis of the 9th episode of the season. The gang's all here on an all-new episode of ABC's Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Friday, July 12th. So that's basically the header of the synopsis. That means that everyone is gonna be reuniting. Fitz and Simmons are gonna make it back to Earth. I'm assuming that's probably gonna be at the end of episode 8, considering this ship that they are on board of seems to be making it to Earth on the trailer for episode 8. So yeah, a lot of events are gonna happen on board of the Lazy Comet, but by the time the episode is over, they're gonna be reuniting with the rest of the team. That's gonna be the end of the 8th episode. The beginning of the 9th episode is going to be all about the moments after the reunion, because the body of the synopsis reads Collision Course Part 2, no time for the team to play catch up, there's a planet to save on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. airing Friday, July 12th. So yeah, I deduced from that the thing is episode 8 is going to be setting up the reunion, giving us the reunion at the very end. Episode 9 is about moving from that point into facing off and dealing with the threat that's coming Earth's way. Now there's one thing to consider over here. The original title that was leaked for this episode was The Baker. Coming to think about it, there's probably a good reason for changing the title of this episode. The fact that we get to know that Jacko is the baker early on in the events of episode 7. So it wouldn't be the smartest idea to tell us what this episode is going to be about, which I assume over here is going to be a little bit about Jacko, telling us the background story of Jacko, how he met Sarge, possibly a lot of details on how he lost his family, how his planet got destroyed, and how he ended up being a member of Sarge's team. An episode like this might also be about the fact that we're gonna lose Jacko, that Sarge is gonna lose Jacko. Now if that were to be the case, it makes a lot of sense that we get to see an episode on which we get to find out a lot about Jacko. You know, them trying to have you connect deeper with the character, kind of understand the character more. That way, when he's all gone and all lost by the end of the episode, and I'm just saying this is a possibility, you basically feel sympathy towards him. But that is just a prediction though. The guest starring list for this episode has us meet Carolina Widrow once again in the role of Izelle, Winston James Francis in the role of Jacko, Brooke Williams in the role of Snowflake, Matt O'Leary in the role of Pax, Maximilian Ozinski in the role of Agent Daviiz, and we're getting the duo back because we're getting Brianna Venskis in the role of Agent Piper. But yeah though, if I were to be right, then knowing a little bit more about Jacko on this episode also means knowing a little bit more about none other than Sarge. That means that we've got the possibility that we're gonna know a little bit more based on the synopsis of episode 8, out of episode 8, and then a little bit more as well out of episode 9, so we're closer to realizing who Sarge really is. But about Izelle though, I did state early on that I do expect she's going to play a major role when they're back on Earth. That seems to be the case. That seems to be the case as well from the trailer of the upcoming episode, and what she told Fitz and Simmons during the events of episode 7, you know, about the artifacts that someone stole from her, which we do realize from the trailer are the monoliths. So yeah, we're seeing a lot more of her. I kind of wonder what her true motives are. I kind of still wonder if she's a good person or a bad person. Talked about that on my theory video, so I'm not planning on wasting more time talking about that over here. However, though, there's one more thing I want to talk about that has nothing to do with this episode, but it's rather got something to do with what Sarge told May during the events of episode 5, back when he abducted her. Let's check that out real quick.
I've lived on planets moving at almost the speed of light. I've been alive for 100 of your years, and I'll be alive 100 years after you're gone.
Okay, so there's one thing over here that a lot could use to argue that Sarge is not Coulson, most definitely not Coulson. He's lived for 100 years. But the heart of the matter is, though, he does mention on that scene that he lived on planets that moved almost at the speed of light. Now, I didn't talk about this before on a previous video, I didn't go into much detail, but I'm thinking over here, maybe I need to kind of expand on this idea a little bit. Let's start simple. Think Lost Season 3, Daniel Faraday telling Jack Shephard, your perception of time on the island is kind of different than how people perceive it outside the island. Now that kind of statement did not mean that the time difference there was, 10 years or 100 years, but kicking it up a notch though, think about Interstellar. Think about how Cooper left his daughter Merv very young, like a child, 10 years old. Think about how by the end of the movie he's still young, quite young, but his daughter is portrayed by Ellen Burstyn. The very old sick Merv, very close to her death while he's still living his younger years. Think about that with Coulson. Think about the idea that this planet or these planets that move at the speed of light had him perceive time differently. So the very thing that was seconds for Cooper, minutes, hours, ended up being years and years for his daughter Merv. That's what caused it all over there, being on that mission somewhere where time is perceived differently, ended up with him missing on all the years of his daughter's life. Her growing from a child into a teen, into an adult, but rather only met her when she was that old. So is there a chance that this 1 year that Coulson died is actually 100 years that Sarge lived? 100 years that he lived on planets that moved at the speed of light or almost at the speed of light, only he perceived time differently. For him it went faster, making Sarge into the Murph and making the SHIELD team and the rest of the planet actually into the Cooper of this story. Now I've been thinking about this Interstellar example, like right after I posted my video speaking about this possibility, that time over here is perceived differently than on those planets. However though, I did not want to push it too hard until, someone actually mentioned it in the comments, like okay, people could agree with this. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like a stretch. So thanks to Florence Chan for mentioning it in the comments to one of my videos, making me think, okay, you know what, it's a possibility, a lot of people could actually agree with this. Now I know I've mentioned this 2 times before in 2 different videos, I'm gonna go through it real quick by the way, but basically some of you might comment on the real hand of Sarge's versus the prosthetic hand of Coulson's, and the thing is we're getting this demonic vibe resurrected by a demon or a demon lord. So if we're getting that kind of vibe, if we're getting that kind of storyline in the end, not really sure yet, but if we're getting that kind of thing, then I wouldn't really worry about his hand getting regenerated. Now there's this one last topic that's been a source for a lot of arguments in the comments to my videos. Unfortunately, some of those arguments went a little bit personal against me, don't really care, but I'm gonna just discuss it real quick as well over here. It's the situation with what Deke said on episode 7 of the season, explaining the entire multiverse thing. Now I believe the very first hint into us heading into a multiverse scenario, rather than a casual loop, straight timeline, overwritten timeline scenario, was the entire thing with the stinger of episode 10 of season 5. You've got Flint and you've got Tess, and they're deciding right then and there to rebuild Earth, using Flint's powers of course. That, by the way, was about the producers, about the writers telling you, telling me, telling everyone that this is basically a multiverse scenario. These people are gonna continue to live in this timeline, this broken Earth timeline, only they're gonna get Earth fixed, and the others are gonna go back, save the planet, make sure that they branch a new timeline with an Earth that was never broken. But our next hint though came on either episode 19 or episode 20 of season 5, when Deke and Fitz had that conversation. One of them was talking about the timeline being overwritten, that being Fitz, so Deke disappearing would be the sign of them having changed the timeline, but then Deke argues multiverse. If this is a multiverse scenario, then I'm gonna still exist, I'm gonna still soldier on, only I'm not gonna be in the timeline that I originally belonged to. Now the thing is, Deke goes back on episode 7 of season 6 and kind of proves this point, like hey, I was right. That's the series trying to tell us in case you missed it the first time, or in case you didn't miss it but you thought those were arguments in a time where they were not sure about anything. Here it is right in front of your face, your explanation. You don't need to bend over backwards, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, you don't need to fix it if it ain't broken. But that being said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the most recent episode, what you think of the synopsis of the upcoming 2 episodes, and the trailer of the upcoming episode as well. Who do you think Sarge is? What do you think of the Interstellar theory? And what do you think of Izel? Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this video, and have a great day.